Welcome everyone back to another video regarding the OSSIM. So I have been working on this during this weekend because look at this, the source and destination IP. I said I'll look into it, even though I couldn't get to the bottom of it. I'm still working on it, but the update is that it does show up whenever there is a certain kind of event where the source IP and destination IP is involved. Actually, for example, when there's a network connection made, yes, definitely there is going to be a source IP and the receiving destination IP, where you will have a mapping of the source IP and destination IP. But for example, if there is an event related to the process created or the process terminated, that's going to be happening on one single IP, one single machine. So there's no source or destination IP involved in it. For example, if you go into the main raw log, and if you see this whole raw event, you won't find a destination IP, which is expected. That's why this doesn't get mapped to the certain source and destination IP. But yes, there were scenarios where uh, the source and destination IP was present, but somehow it didn't got mapped. And the reason for that one was the could be, so these are the different scenarios that I saw during my testing, and I'm gonna show you. Um, there you go. This is the link which explains different scenarios that why your deployment would have 0.0.0 as source or destination IP and the possible solutions for that. For example, if the log event itself does not contain a source or destination data, then definitely that's not going to be mapped. For example, if you have event like process creation or a process terminated that's happening on a single machine, there is no question that why there is source IP or destination IP 0.0.0. Then for them, the log entry itself is providing a host name which does not resolve from the sensor. Now here, you need to understand that when the alienvault sensor receives a log and finds a host name or an IP address, it tries to resolve it. So when it cannot resolve a host name, it can't map the IP to your source IP or the destination IP. So this is one reason. How do you fix this? You configure a DNS server. That's what I did for in my case, because I initially I installed it as a separate VM, awesome in a VM. But when I saw this, I created my own Windows server, enabled a DNS server on that, and then updated the DNS server details in the Alienvault and the awesome installation as well. I'll show you just now that how I did it. And then obviously did a bit of troubleshooting, but reconfigured the whole awesome installation, and things started to clear up. Could be that you are using the wrong plugin. For example, you are getting the logs from nxlog, sorry, Windows machine, but you have enabled a wrong plugin, could be for a firewall, and you are trying to map the Windows logs and you're trying them to be parsed by a firewall plugin, which is not going to work. And then it could be, and in some cases, the plugin itself has a problem. The regex that is going to parse those things is going to have a problem. It's not reading the raw log itself correctly. Then in that case, there's going to be a problem also. So don't get confused with this plugin and everything, how the raw log. I will have a separate video for what happens when the log is generated and it reaches the awesome. How does it get to parsed by the system? How does it get mapped by by the sim solution? What is a plugin and how does it becomes an event? We'll have a separate video for that, just to understand the life cycle of a log. So this is the link that I'm going to share in the my video description also, so you can take a look. So for now, what I did was, okay, first I'll show you what I did with my Okay, vault dash setup. So just simply type this command. It will take you to the alienvault setup. We'll go into the system preferences, configure network, and here you have this name server. So my name server previously was not working fine. So I just went inside, updated my the DNS server IP, pressed OK. It will take some time, just like few seconds, and then it will come back. So you go back and apply all changes, and everything should be fine. How will you see that if your settings have been enabled and everything is fine? So what you do is you just nslookup any one of the machine. For example, one machine that I have has a host name of machine 2. That's what I'm going to do. So it will give you the answer as a machine2.rs.local. In case somebody gets trouble in updating their DNS server, feel free to comment and I'll be more than happy to assist you with that. One thing is this, that you change your DNS server. The other thing that I want to show you is, let's go into the, yes, one more thing that I enabled in my case was on my machine 2, I also added Sysmon as a log source. So in my configuration, I went into the nxlog.conf, open it with any of the editor that you want. I use Notepad for now. You can use Notepad++. So when you're doing this, you must have seen in another video, for the Windows security and the other logs, system and application, you just uncomment all these lines for the nxlog. Now you can also put here, which I did previously, select path is equal to sysmon, and you can type it here, but you have a separate section in the nxlog file also for the sysmon, which you will uncomment just like any other. So here, for example, this is for IIS, this is for FTP, the above one. So depending on your log source, from where you are going to pick up your logs, you can enable those, uncomment those sections, and the nxlog will start reading those logs. So in my case, I'm just gonna search for sysmon. Next, there you go. Here, it's a very simple, small section where you have the syslog configuration. The main thing is you have this Microsoft Windows Sysmon operational query from where it will be reading logs. So once you do this, just restart your nxlog service, and your nxlog is going to start reading your logs from the log sources. Next, you go to the configuration deployment. Now, since the log source is generating those logs and nxlog has started to read those logs, and it will keep sending those logs to your sensor, OSSIM sensor. But the OSSIM sensor needs to be enabled to read those logs. How is it going to read those logs? You will come into the configuration, deployment, and then click on the main alienvault IP. Go into the sensor configuration, because it's a sensor that is responsible for parsing those logs that are being collected from the log source. And in here you have two different kinds of plugins, detection and the collection. So we'll go into the collection and select these are the available plugins and these are the enabled ones. So by default, you will have alienvault, HIDS, NIDS, PAM, Unix, PRADS, SSH, and sudo. So these are the two ones that I have enabled, nxlog and sysmon nxlog. So what you have to do is just search for it, nxlog, and any one of them, you can just click plus and it will come here. Once you do that, this apply changes will be enabled, and do it, and it will reconfigure everything. Once that is done, what you'll do, you'll come to the sim. Maybe you will have to wait a little bit, but just go here in real time and all the this will now keep on refreshing every 15 seconds, and it will show you the new logs coming in. In case you have lots of logs coming in, what you can do is you can put a filter. For example, I'll put 192.168 and any of the IP. But if you don't want to have logs filter according to the IP, you can show plugin filter also. So you can select, for example, in this case, I am getting all the Sysmon logs. And if I want to say if nxlog is able to send any log also, I'll just search for nxlog. It's too much. Let's go at the bottom here. So if you select this, all those logs are going to be filtered according to the nxlog. So these are the logs that your nxlog is sending. So for some reason, I see that it is from the noon, like 2:30, 2:48, and after that, it hasn't received any logs. So now, if you have to troubleshoot that, you'll just go there. In your var log, you'll see, okay, am I receiving any logs from this nx? So in here, you will have lots of logs created. Now look at this, ls grab nxlog. So you have two log files created, nxlog and sysmon nxlog. So I'll look into it, tail minus f nxlog dot log, that if I am getting any logs or only, okay. The last log that I received is from 7 o'clock. Okay, this is something else that we can do in another video just to troubleshoot. And now if I see tail minus f sysmon next log, let's see what's the last log that we received. 7:11. For some reason it's a time, there's a time difference. So in here, if you see, at the start of the line is 19:11, and then in the next event you have, sorry, it rebooted for some reason my system restarted somehow. But I'll just quickly go through the sysmon events that we are getting. For example, if we have data source is equal to sysmon, we have process created, and we click on it. So you won't find anything reasonable over here, but however, if you go through the section at the raw log or the username user data one, you will have more information onto it. User data one will have trusted installer.exe. That is most probably this process that was started by services.exe. But the parsing over here is where I see in OSSIM is not very useful, because user data one won't make much of a sense to the person. Their cyber schema that they have developed is not very helpful. They might have to map it according to the events type. For example, if this is a sysmon event id 1, their field values should be like process creation, parent process, image path used, rather than user data 1 or user data 2, which is being used for generically every other event. So for now, we'll have to make a sense out of reading the raw log itself. So if we go back and pick up another process, sorry, event, registry value set. In this case also, for example, you have the log source itself. Anti-authority would be the system explore.exe. Okay, but look at this. This is on the machine 2. This is the log. This is the machine. Just the event ID. That is like sysmon 13 is to somebody try to set the value of within the registry. Yes, here it is. The registry value set, role name, Egypt set value. This is the time, process GUID, process ID 1320. What is the process? Okay, explore.exe, target object. Target object would be the what value you were trying to set. There you go. Details, registry value set. This is the SID, and that's it. That's what is being offered by the sysmon, and the value event ID 13, however, but the parsing needs to be improved. And so the generic event, if you see somewhere this, that means this, even the the plugin couldn't make sense of the raw log itself, and it had no idea what's happening, so it would be just titled as a generic event. For example, this DNS query, there must be a regex missing which couldn't parse this raw log, so it marked as a generic event, but still you have the raw log over here. So I must say, as a sim solution, it lacks this parsing thing. Maybe if we can have it improved in a way. For example, now let's see, and I will open an SCP, WinSCP, okay, and I will try to make an SSH connection with 1 to 5 and see that if we get some real events on this one. Now this is my machine, Windows 10 machine, from where I'm trying to brute force the um, the alienvault itself. That's our IP. If you go here, 49125 and 41925. So I'll not give a password. This is some XYZ user, which is not the correct user. So I'll try to log in, try again and again and again, reconnect, just to generate the events. You can see in the behind screen, you are already seeing the port 22. Somebody tried to access. Now in this case, look at this. You have failed password, failed password, failed password events being generated from this IP 49.103 to the destination IP. In this case, here it is the AV sensor itself. So now, since two machines are involved, source IP and the destination IP, you are seeing 49.0103. In the same thing, if you go into the alarms, because it's a brute force attack, and the data source is alienvault heads, let me see the event also. So in this case, you are looking at the source IP, destination IP, their host name, their MAC address for both of them, and the raw log itself. Invalid user relative from this port blah blah. Okay, now let's go to the SIM solution. Now you can see here also in the SIM solution, you have a directive events, AV free brute force attack, SSH authentication attack against 192.168.49.125, which is your sensor IP itself. So you can see the source and destination IPs in this case with failed password and invalid user also. As I told you, the relative was not a valid user. Attempt to log in using a non-existing user. Now let's go to the alarms because so much brute force has happened. This is the one that I tried before, and this is like 2 minutes ago. This has happened. Maybe you won't be able to see events because still the correlation is happening. That's what it says. The alarm is still being correlated and therefore it cannot be modified. However, let's try to open it. And you see 49.103, 49.125, internal 1 to 1, and you have all these directive events also. So this is where you do your investigation. Your alarms are coming up. For now, with us, it is only brute force authentication, and they are mainly from my machine to the AV sensor. Here you have all the events. Whatever the events are being created, whatever activity is happening on your endpoints, that's being logged over here in the SIM events. The alarms are when the events are being correlated and they are being, and they after the correlation they are deemed to be something important, the alarm is triggered. There is for now, for today, that's pretty much that I would be explaining, but I will share this thing in the link. If somebody wants to troubleshoot that, more than welcome. You need help, just ping me. Rest, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you so much for your patience. Bye bye.